there are some films that you only need to watch once and they will stay with you forever. And The Boy in the Striped Pyjama is one such film. I read the book first in 2007, and then I did see the film when it came out in 2008, and I hadn't seen it since. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't going to. I was never going to watch it a second time. But then I realised I hadn't reviewed it. And I have this uncontrollable need to review everything I've ever seen. And I thought, well, I can't just review it having not seen it since 2008. So let's give it a go. Let's see what it's like a second time. And I'm also a lot older now than I was when I first watched it. I would have been either 15 or 16 when this came out, depending on when it was released, September, so I would have been 16. And I feel like being now 33, I could have had a different response to it. And I'll talk about what happens in a moment. I won't spoil anything. I will not spoil anything about this. But I think the only thing that feels different to what I remember is that it felt a little slower in places. There are a couple of times when it felt a little slow, but in general, it's still as powerful as it was back in the day. And honestly, a tiny part of me regrets watching it again, not because it's not good. Quite the opposite, actually. This is about a young boy called Bruno, played by Asa Butterfield. And this is in Poland, and he meets a boy called Shmuel. Now, Shmuel is actually on the other side of a fence in an extermination camp, and Bruno, being a young boy, doesn't necessarily fully understand what's going on. And I don't want to say too much about Bruno's family, but his family, particularly his father, have an interesting role to play in this, and it's a stark contrast between his father and Bruno's, I guess, naivety of the whole situation. And Bruno wants to help Shmuel, and he wants to be friends with Shmuel, and he wants to be helping Shmuel get onto the right side of the fence. But obviously that's not really possible. How could that work? And he visits him, and the scenes are just, they're so heartbreaking. And there's one moment in this, the whole film stuck out to me over the course of the last however many years, but there's one moment that I could remember word for word. And it's near the beginning of the film when Bruno hurts himself, and he meets a doctor who's wearing the camp clothing, and the doctor mentions practicing, obviously medicine practice, and Bruno has a line about how he mustn't be very good at it if he has to practice, and that line has stuck with me since I first saw this in 2008. I could see it coming, I could feel it, and I had a little smile on my face because it was just a teeny tiny bit of humour. There is no comedy in this at all, but just tiny little things like that are, I guess, heartwarming more than anything else. This innocence that Bruno has, and that innocence to the world. And I feel like these kind of things are really important for everybody of any age to know about, but at the same time there is value in being young enough to not fully understand the gravity of the situation, because nobody wants to grow up in a world where Nazi-occupied Poland like this is a thing, because that's absolutely horrific. And I don't want to say too much more about it. I really don't want to give away anything else. The film is primarily about this friendship between Bruno and Shmuel, but there's a lot more to it, and I don't want to say too much else, actually. I was going to say something else, but it might be a bit of a spoiler. I will in a moment give a spoiler warning for something I was going to say. And in general, it's incredible. As I said, it's a little slow in places, but in general, it's a powerful film. It's a powerful story. It's exceptionally emotional. Bruno is a really great character. The performances are really great. It's a very heavy film. And as I said, I never wanted to watch it again. It's very unlikely I'll ever see it again. And for me, once is enough. But it stuck with me. Watching it once, it still stayed in my mind. All of this time, however many years have passed since then, it's an incredible film. Absolutely incredible. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But it's one that everybody has to see. I'm actually curious, just very quickly, I just want to check what the rating is for this, the age rating. Okay, it's a PG-13 according to IMDb. That's a US rating. And the UK rating, I'm going to guess it's a 12. It's a 12A, and the DVD rating has a 12. I'd be interested to know why the DVD is a 12. I'd love to know what they cut from that. If anybody knows, please feel free to let me know. It's heavy going. I'd say definitely no younger than 12. Definitely quite challenging. And I also think it would be kind of difficult to understand as well for younger children, because it does deal with a lot of heavy topics, but it doesn't necessarily explain them in excessive detail, because we are primarily exploring this time period through Bruno's eyes. So obviously we see things from his perspective. So obviously he's not going to understand absolutely everything. So it doesn't go into detail about everything. I think it does require at least some knowledge of the Holocaust, and I guess a basic knowledge of that there. So I wouldn't say this is a good entry-level film if you've never studied the Holocaust, if you've never studied Nazi Germany or Nazi-occupied Poland. It's probably not a good place to start. It's a brutal place to start, very eye-opening, but definitely one that's, I think, a good way to build on existing knowledge. And yeah, as I said, I read it when I was 15, watched it when I was 16, and then watched it again when I was 33. And I think this will be the last time, but it's very powerful, very well done, definitely worth watching, but good luck if you haven't seen it and you do watch it, because it's exceptionally emotional, but very, very powerful. I will now mention the one thing that I was going to mention just before, that is, I guess it's a spoiler, so this is the last thing I have to say, and it's a bit of a spoiler. I'm not going to say what happens at the end of the film, but I do just want to say it may be the most powerful ending to any film that I have ever seen. I can't say that for certain, but I'm pretty confident that that's the case. I can't think of another film that's had such a powerful ending. And it absolutely broke me. As it should. I feel like that's the only reasonable response to this. And that's why I don't want to watch it again. The Boy in Striped Pyjamas is an incredible film. Did it win an Oscar? I'm just checking this on IMDb. This is me doing real-time research. It only won 7 awards. British Independent Film Awards, Audience Choice Awards, Goya Awards. Some of these are nominations. Irish Film and TV, London Critics, Young Artist, Cine Euphoria, International Film Music Critics, German Dubbing Awards. Okay, so I actually Googled this, and the Google AI overview is saying that it didn't win an Oscar or even nominated for because of its, and I quote, perceived narrative simplification of the Holocaust, which many critics found to be overly simplistic and potentially inaccurate. End quote. Well, I say to that, critics are misunderstanding the point. This is from a child's perspective, so of course it's going to be simplified. So I think they've completely missed the point if that's the case. So that's very shocking. That's very, very shocking. And ultimately, it would get my awards, whatever those awards would be. The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas is an incredible film, and needless to say, it's one that I definitely recommend.